Hiya, how's it going? Bonnie Violet here. I'm a trans, femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist and digital chaplain. And in case you don't know where you are at Dragon Spirituality. This is actually episode 10, though it's happening in the kind of the 11th slot, so to speak. But this is episode 10 of 12 of our 12-week series titled Gender Diverse, which is sponsored by the Dragon Spirituality Summit, which is actually taking place this next weekend in just a few days. In Chicago. I would say here in Chicago. I'm in Chicago this time, as you might be able to see behind me. So you can still register if you're in the Chicago area or can get into the Chicago area. You can join in person, or we are also streaming the whole process online, including some of the spiritual care services, all the panels, the keynotes, the shows. We do have a family edition show, which we will show portions of that. But obviously, we're not going to have children in that scene, but we are going to still read a book with the young people who come on, or even the adults who want to hear the stories. But we'll keep the audience out of the shots, if that makes any sense for folks who might be curious about that. But you can go to Dragon Spirituality Summit on YouTube, and you can find all of the things there. It is free. If you're able to contribute something that's super rad, you can go to dragonspirituality.com and register. It'd be great if you could register whether you're going to pay anything or not, just so we can have a sense of who's coming and who came and all that sort of fun stuff. So please do check it out, dragonspirituality.com. Also this evening with our guest, as always, feel free to ask questions along the way, and I will do my best to bring them up on the screen, ask the question of our guest on your behalf. Tell us, we're sexy, whatever, those sorts of things are invited as well. I'm also going to have the socials of our guest as well as a Venmo link. So feel free to, go to that Venmo link and send a little gift to our guest as well. So not to belabor it any further, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest this evening, Justyn Caze. Hello.
Hi everyone, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm good. It's not as hot as I thought it was earlier, so that's good. I'm not
Yes.
gonna sweat to death.
So you're comfortable.
Yes, I'm comfortable.
Yeah. I'd maybe a little sweaty. I'm a little sweaty. Yeah,
Well,
but
you're wearing a sweater. Of course you're gonna be sweaty.
yeah, it is the sweater. Just because you cut the sleeves off doesn't make it
Yeah.
right. It
Yeah,
doesn't
it
make it
doesn't
a
make
tank
it
top.
less. It doesn't make it any less hot.
Right. So do you want to just give a brief little introduction about yourself, name, pronouns, what where you're at?
Sure. My name is Justyn Caze. I'm actually the Imperial Crown Prince of Reign 52 of Imperial Court of Los Angeles, Hollywood. I am from West Covina, California. If you guys don't know where that is, it's east of LA. And I've been doing drag for a little close to 2 years. My 2-year anniversary is actually be next Sunday. And I started out digitally, doing performances online, live via Zoom, StreamYard, things like that. I did actually do pre-recorded pieces as well, which anybody who's ever interested, I can always provide links.
Awesome, great, and that sounds fantastic. Thanks for introducing yourself a little bit. I like to just dive right into the conversation. So I would love to hear a little bit about what your experience was around spirituality or religion as a young person.
Okay. I actually grew up in a very southern household in California. I grew up in San Dimas, California, but my family is from Louisiana, and I grew up in a very Southern Creole household, and I grew up Catholic, and I actually didn't have as bad of an experience with my religion as some people have dealt with, but I think that had more to do with my parents not strictly forcing us to go to church every weekend and having us repent or anything like that. My parents were like, you know what, if this is what you want to do, that's what you want to do. You don't have to keep up with it, but we'll support you either way. And I know my brother had stopped going, and then he continued later on in life. Me and my oldest brother both continued on and went straight through. So I'm a confirmed Catholic. My saint name is Joan of Arc, because it resonated with me, this her story, not just the fact of like her fighting for her religion, but fighting for the fact of what she truly believed in. And that's how I perceive myself, and continually aspire to be as involved and working alongside my fellow queer folks, have them be religious, have them not, have them have some spirituality, have them not. It's entirely up to every person, and to respect it, no matter their background, no matter what they believe in, what they find truly to be out there in this world.
Mm-hmm. And at what age did you I guess, were you drawn to Joan of Arc and like kind of started the relationship with Joan of Arc?
It was actually kind of interesting because we had this huge old collection of the saint books in my house with our family Bible. And it was on this big pedestal, this big wooden pedestal on top of like a bookshelf in our house. And there were these golden, shiny books. And me, with my ADHD, I could not help but always pull them down and look at how shiny they were. So, my mom offered, when I was going through my confirmation courses, was like, "Hey, why don't you offer these books to your senior class and help them figure out which one they want to be?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" So I brought them over, and these were old books, and they smelled old, but the smell of old books is great. You opened it, and you could just kind of go through each saint up into a certain point, obviously, because these were older books. I think they were like a generation from like 1960s. So you would open the books and open the pages. They're very delicate. They were literally the same paper as any Bible. So they were very delicate and very smooth. And I remember reading and hearing stories of Joan of Arc when I was younger, obviously from the historical aspect, and just in general, like everybody knows the story of Joan of Arc. So I was like, I like this, but everybody was picking, um, different ones that pertain to them, and we were told to pick something that called to us. And I was like, I actually really like just resonated with her story, and inside books and on the internet and everything. And it just sat there, and I was like, this is it. It it called, it just sit with me, and I can't really explain it, but it's more of like intuition, where it was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is you, this is where your life is supposed to be, this is what good you can do, is to stick up and be there for your fellow folks.
Mm. Right, right. And how does I guess Joan of Arc relate to, I want to say, gender, whether that's your gender outside of drag or in drag, if at all? Like, what do you feel like there's a relation or a connection?
At the time there could have been, because if you look at the stories, there's not a lot of female saints out there.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's enough, but uh I just resonated with Joan at the time. I
Right.
never fully identified as a woman, as female, and it was something I never was comfortable with, even when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to resonate with someone who was female, but not necessarily feminine,
Right.
helped me a lot, because she wasn't considered feminine, because she wore like armor. She was, you know, she fought. She wasn't just, she wasn't the typical Western ideal of feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the fact that she was tough, and she stuck it out, and she was just just really strong. And most people would consider that a feminine trait, but it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like the fact that, despite everything, that wasn't her main goal. That wasn't her main like pertaining thing in her story, was doing the feminine thing, but was for fighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Veronica Electronica is saying hello from Nashville. Veronica is going to be
Hi.
our guest next. I wouldn't say next week, but we're in the middle of the week, so it's going to be on Wednesday.
Nice. I'm
Yes,
excited.
our final of the 12. Yay.
Yay.
Awesome. And when did you first see drag?
Oh, that is a story to tell. Okay, I have to go a little bit back before that just to kind of give people a background of the story. So I was with one of my very good friends, one of my best friends of all time. His name's Patrick, and we both came out to each other at a young age, and it was a fun time. Like us coming out it was a cute time. But when we both decided let's go to a gay bar for the first time. Let's go. And this specific gay bar had specific nights for 18 plus, not just 21 plus. And this
Mhm.
was more of a local bar called Oasis. Anybody is from my area and they're queer and around my age, they know Oasis. Um, and we were looking it up, we're going so excited, and then before we went inside, we sat in the car, we looked at each other, and we chickened out.
Mm.
And we went and got A&W down the street. Um, and then soon after that, I was like, we tried again a little bit later, and we finally saw for the first time a drag show. It was at Oasis. It had I know you people know Raja from
Mhm.
Drag Race. She originally started out in my area as a queen,
Oh, wow.
and she was one of my first exposures. Same thing with Jackie B.
Mm.
Same thing. I think Angina had been on stage before she became part of Drag Race. A lot of people who were on Drag Race had been at Oasis,
Mm.
and they were my first exposures to drag in general. And I was like, oh my god, I love this. But I had never seen a king before.
Mm,
I always thought,
mhm.
oh, it's just, it's for cis men, cis queer men who want to, uh, say bygones to the gender norms, and I thought that was still pretty cool, you
Right.
know. But then I went on, and one night, it was, I can't remember what specific night, but I finally saw King.
Mhm.
Phantom. King Phantom was the king that I saw for the first time. They did The Crow, the movie Crow, but they did the song Burn by The Cure, which was also the song from the movie The Crow. And I was blown away because one, they were pregnant at the time
Oh,
and
wow.
doing tricks on stage and just doing the whole bit. And I was flabbergasted. My jaw was
Mm.
like on the table. I was like, oh my God. And then I thought afterwards, I can do this?
Mm.
Me, person with breasts and everything. I was like, I can be a drag person. I can be a drag persona. I can have one.
Mhm.
So after that, I was like, I want to do this. But I didn't do it for at least 10 years after my
Mm.
inspiration. Um,
Why is
because
that?
I had, oh,
Yeah.
I'm actually about to get into that.
Oh, alright.
Um, yeah, I didn't get into it, not necessarily out of like fear or anything, because I had a really accepting family. Came to a very young age and everything, but I had this problem with makeup. I grew up not being forced to follow gender norms, but girls at school would be like, "Why don't you put on makeup?" I had a friend actually pluck my eyebrows, and it was the worst experience of my life. And I didn't like the idea of having to put on all this stuff. And then it's also considered in some aspects to be more feminine, which I
Mm,
know is
mhm.
not true either. And so I finally just sat down and I was like, you know what? After all these years, let's do it. Let's try. Because what I did was I started doing TikTok, and that was when I finally started putting on actual makeup for
Mm.
the first time on my own benefit. Not anybody else's choices, not anybody else's expectations. Just doing it out of a creative aspect and trying to figure out what I would look like with any of this on.
Mhm.
And it was so much better than I ever anticipated. Finally seeing this face after all those years of being too nervous, or because I also have a lot of allergies too, so I was scared of like causing allergies and all this other stuff, and it it didn't cause any problems. Like I was just, you know what, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna see how far I can go, and then I was like, you know what, I want to actually start like really doing drag and
Mhm.
really pulling out this masculine persona of Justyn out and really putting him out there and showing him to the world. And it just got better and better, and it made me feel so much better about myself than being forced into the aspect of being my birth sex completely by putting on makeup and looking feminine. I could look like this and still be wearing makeup, and it's fantastic. It's like it's an art form. It's a whole other art form.
Yeah.
And I feel so good about it.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd never heard that perspective before as far as like makeup in that kind of journey, especially I think around like as a trans person myself who wasn't identifying as trans until I started doing drag. And so like drag kind of like opened up, I guess, access to my gender, but there's still some of those things. Yeah, I don't know. I know how sometimes my gender or my perceived gender or sex assigned at birth kind of plays into my drag. Can you talk a little bit about kind of like how that's distinguished for you, if at all?
Like the difference between drag and my actual gender itself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said earlier, I never felt comfortable identifying as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Never did. I don't also feel comfortable being identified as a man either. I am a non-binary trans mask person, but I don't feel comfortable being perceived as masculine. I like being perceived in the middle,
Right.
completely just off the wall in the middle. And when people can't tell, that's where I feel my gender euphoria.
Mm.
So putting on Justyn, I obviously look more masculine. I feel great being perceived as male on that. That's fine. Outside of it, I'm like, let's not.
Yeah.
Let's look outside those boundaries, please.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, come on, non-binary. I guess non-binary flags in here.
Right.
But being going from my age and being uncomfortable as perceived as a girl, being told what I can and can't do, but being complimented at times where I did do something masculine that actually made me feel good about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the times where I was like, that feels good. I wish people would see that more. And another thing is I had a very cracky voice growing up because my voice was changing for my
Mm-hmm.
puberty. And I got made fun of horribly for that voice.
Mm-hmm.
I will not go into much detail because it can be very derogatory and offensive, and also brings up some bad memories. I'd rather not go down that road.
Yeah.
But I got made fun of a lot for having my cracky voice, and I have this mental block now where I can't lower my voice on my own.
Mm.
I have to. It's something I'm working on. Obviously, I have to go through therapy and all that stuff, but to let my voice be more naturally deep, it's uncomfortable because I have that trauma of being
Yeah.
made fun of for having a deeper voice,
Mm.
despite the fact of my actual at my signed sex at birth.
Yeah.
So, and this is like, and being Justyn and being perform more masculine songs helps in a way, helps with my euphoria. But outside of it, I want to be perceived as like whatever you see, that's fine with me. But if you want to directly associate my gender outside of my drag, the
Mm-hmm.
best thing that can be done is they, them, he, him pronouns, and in drag is he, him fully. So when I'm Justyn, he, him, I'm a dude. But
Mm-hmm.
outside of it, I am AJ. I do not want to be perceived as one or the other. As a mix, great,
Mm-hmm.
but do not assume. And that's where like a lot of my gender euphoria comes from, is when people try to assume but can't figure it out, and
Right.
then they get confused, and I get very happy. Um, but I don't like the idea of us being forced to perceive, because it's kind of like, it's like, don't judge a book by its cover. We're raised to have that as our mentality, as our as per perspective of the world. But a lot of people didn't take it to heart because they were like, oh, it's just a silly little quote that my parents used to tell me. No, it's actually beneficial for the rest of your life, because you don't assume other people's
Right.
lives. You don't assume how they feel, what they consider themselves. You don't assume their gender,
Mm-hmm.
and you just kind of ask, or you learn about them. And if they correct you, more time to learn and to embrace. But that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
So I try myself is to be that aspect where people can take that moment to like, should I judge this book by its cover?
Mm.
Or should I trust the back cover? Like asking questions pretty much, looking at the reviews, getting to know this person pretty much.
Right.
That's where I put myself, and that's where I hope people perceive me outside of this. And sometimes they
Mm-hmm.
do, sometimes they don't. But
Right, right. And that can be very freeing. I think oftentimes nobody really fits in their identifiers. And I think sometimes those identifiers can be really restrictive,
mhm,
especially if we think we only have two options or we only have, whatever it, and we don't feel like we fit in that. I feel like I love like the way that gender is being expressed and being talked about a lot more. I think for me, it feeds into a lot more things too. I can't help for myself. Like I tend to like be a little bit more on the femme side in my like because I'm growing breasts and like
mhm,
those sorts of things. But I still identify as genderqueer, and I really relate with
mhm.
that aspect of not wanting to be seen as one or the other, really.
Yeah, you want to be perceived as you. You want to be perceived as Bonnie Violet, not
Right.
as what people assume from the rest of society and our social status and
Hmm.
our and what we were grown up to do is to assume is just to be like call people ma'am and sir. What if somebody doesn't like being called that? It's why like when I'm at work, I don't give people ma'am or sir on the phone.
Hmm.
I ask them their name or what they prefer to be called by because it's a little bit easier because some people don't like because I mean we all have nicknames. People have
Yeah.
nicknames. People have abbreviations of their name that they prefer more than their full name. Because of their full name, maybe they were called that when they were in trouble when they were kids. So
Right,
it,
right,
doesn't makes them unhappy. It makes them give them some bad memories. So why not ask like, hey, do you prefer Christopher or do you prefer Chris?
right,
What do you like to be called? And they're like, oh, that's fine. And I'm like, cool, okay. But sometimes they're like, actually, yeah, can you call me this? And I'm like, oh, cool, that's fine. It works with me.
right, right.
And it's just a, it's the aspect of being judged and being um perceived in the world by others when what perspective actually matters is our own.
Hmm.
Um and that's like it going back to like the spiritual part, the this whole thing. Um I grew up not perceiving other people like in my congregation and things like that. We were told not to judge. That
Mm.
was like my biggest lesson coming out of being Catholic and everything is do not judge others and do unto others as you would like to be done unto you. So treating people better and respecting them and understanding where they're coming from and maybe asking those questions is better than just assuming. Some people like the assumption because that
Right.
helps them feel like they're passing. That's great. But for some, it's not as easy, or they feel like you're doing like, trying to make them feel better by saying it. It's just a perspective. So
Hmm.
like how would you feel if somebody else called you by somebody else's name all the time?
Right,
That's how
right.
it's always been seen.
Hmm.
And I would not want to be called by somebody else's name all day long.
Right.
So why would you want to do that to somebody else's gender?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think more than trans people obviously benefit from that sort of approach with things, because
Yeah,
like you said, there are plenty of things that we get called automatically that we're like, no, don't call me that, or it bugs me. Like, ma'am, sir is like a
yeah,
really common thing said that a lot of people, even cisgendered people, don't like being called ma'am or sir
yeah,
for whatever
yeah,
reason.
yeah. Like like working in customer service, you kind of get that aspect of like, does this person like being called ma'am or miss? Because it's that aspect of that of like most of the culture where age is inappropriate, like asking for a woman's age is inappropriate kind of thing. So calling someone ma'am when they look older, that may offend them because they don't
Hmm.
want to be perceived as older, which is fine.
Right.
So why not be like, would you mind if I called you ma'am? Or would you prefer miss or ms or something like that? and usually be like, oh, you don't mind, I don't mind being called ma'am, or I don't mind
Right,
being
right.
called this. And me growing up in a Southern household, like I mentioned earlier, it's something that we're taught to do out of respect. But I broke myself out of that at a younger age because I noticed a lot of people did not like younger people calling them ma'am.
Hmm.
Sir was fine. You know, a lot of guys didn't mind sir, but it was ma'am. If I called somebody ma'am at my young age, I got dirty looks because it's like you do not know a woman's age or something like that, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. How how has it been? I guess I know you have a crown. Do you want to
Hmm.
talk a little bit about how you got that, how you acquired that?
I acquired this by being part of the Imperial Court of Los Angeles and Hollywood. It is part of the imperial court system that spans from Canada into Mexico. And what we do is a lot of nonprofit work and things like that. And being the Imperial Crown Prince, I have a crown. I had
Mhm.
one as Imperial Prince, and this is the same crown. But this is what we wear for coronations, um, photo shoots, things like that to show our regality. And this guy is heavy as hell, and I'm not gonna put it on my head. Um, but we get crowns as a statement as to our position. A lot of the state crowns that we get, and coronation crowns that the emperors and empresses get, they are massive and they are so tall and so big and so sparkly. It's gorgeous, but
Mm.
they're also very heavy. It's a burden. It's a burden to bear because it is heavy, and a lot of people misinterpret that, um, the size and the weight until they actually feel it and they're like, oh, so it's not just aluminum with plastic gemstones. This is literal metal with like gold plate and everything. It's
Mhm.
so big. This is the front, so it would sit on my head like this, right?
Right.
And it's it's something I don't really wear all that often, but being part of the court, I have no problem showing off because it gives people an idea of what it draws them in, obviously, but it gives them an idea of our position, what we do, and what we
Mhm.
represent. And everyone has a crown in the court, no matter your position. Some courts maybe not, but ours definitely. And
Mhm.
our court is one of the ones that have the most trans folks in it and represent the most trans people because the Queen Mother of Southern California is Karina Samala,
Mhm.
and I love that woman so much. But she's a trans woman, and she has so many big crowns, and she looks magnificent in every single one. But um, what we do for our court mostly is work with a lot of the different BIPOC trans organizations, and it's mostly what we do is charity work, nonprofit work, do more for the community, things like that, and um, that's something I'm always going to be proud of by being
Mhm.
part of the sport. I know like a lot of people do it's like a lot of pageantry stuff like that, but that pageantry, the events we put on, things like that do help go towards like scholarships. Um, the organizations that we are close with, like St. John's Wellness Center, which works with the queer and BIPOC and underrepresented communities,
Mhm.
especially the less fortunate communities, um, who don't have like the benefit of having clinics and things like that. That clinic goes from everywhere. And what they do is obviously offer vaccines, which I actually got from St. John's themselves during one of the Pride events that happened in August.
Mhm.
And this is my second one. I got this from a bar, but my first one I did get from St. John's. And
Mhm.
um, the fact that during the monkeypox outbreak out here in LA is is really detrimental, but it shows the strength of our community in LA because we all banded together and started vaccinating each other and working with clinics to get the vaccine and put it in those who are more prone to getting sick, like the high risk people. Like for me, I'm immunocompromised due to my health conditions, and I'm a drag performer. So
Mhm.
I was like, I'm not taking any risks. I'm not going to expose my wife. I am not going to screw this up. So I I got this, and it's kicking my butt right now. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's kicking my butt.
Right.
But yeah, but we do a lot for the community, and that's one of the things I'm always going to be proud of by being part of the court and doing what I can with them.
Right. And like the court system has such a long history, isn't it, like 40 or plus
Oh, it's
years?
longer than
And
that. It's longer
yeah,
than that.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
like is it close to 50, I think? Or is it even
Well,
more?
we're we're going to be hitting reign 53. So
Okay.
think about that. That's
Right, right.
53 years with our court. We are not
Mm-hmm.
the first court. I don't know the top of my head. I don't know which one is right now. But they would have the most reigns sitting with them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different ones that are like there's different ones all across the country. Obviously, there's one in Canada. There's even one in Alaska.
Right.
There's one in Hawaii. There's which is one of our sister courts actually.
And
Hawaii is one of our sister courts.
Mexico's part of it too, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Mexico, there are some. They're not a lot, but it is expanding.
Mm-hmm.
And Canada obviously is expanding itself. The U.S. there's not as many courts out east, but there is. They are starting to build slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot in California though. There's at least a few per like other county or so.
Yeah.
It's just LA County is its one because it's where the major one for the entire. And then there's one for Riverside. There's one for San Diego. Orange County actually disbanded, but that's different. Then we have one for Long Beach specifically. We have different ones for Central California. Obviously, San Francisco
Mm-hmm.
has their own, and they just had a coronation, correct?
Yes, yes. I was there guess it was last weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my first official, it was like my first coronation, which I've been aware of the court for about 20 years. And it's great to hear how relevant it's stayed. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're starting to see, like, I'm originally from Idaho, and like they recently like elected their first like Black
Mm-hmm.
empress. I think that's the title, right? Yeah. um, and so like it's great to see that the organization's kind of moving with the times and really kind of
Mm-hmm.
continuing, because I feel like it's always been like, initially my understanding was always around HIV and AIDS, and that was like a really big needed thing at the time, and it's
Mm-hmm.
still something, but not to the degree that some of these other um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess issues or
Mm-hmm.
opportunities for community to look out for itself, I guess, or out for one another.
Yeah, and not every court and every court has its own kind of thing. Like for us, we're more leaning towards like the trans community, due to the organizations we work with the most, who
Right.
help with HRT, underprivileged folks who like especially where our court has actually taken care of two refugee families from the Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. Ukraine or I can't remember. But we're taking care of them and their kids, getting them vaccinated, getting them to schools, things like that. It's not just like raising money and scholarships. It's actually like we actually do reach out and help the community. We do a lot of homeless work. Every month I believe we do one, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just it depends on the some people still do work with the HIV and AIDS. We still do work with that as well. But like I said, not as many do it as much. But a lot of the clinics we work with still work with them, and we help raise awareness and things like that. But right now, because of COVID, and the monkeypox and everything, that's mostly what we're focusing on is
Mm-hmm.
getting the community vaccinated and helping with their health needs and whatever we can do to help make it easier for them
Right.
and everyone else.
How would you say that your drag and spirituality are connected now? Now that you've been doing
Now,
drag for a couple of years, and how are they connected, would you say?
I would say they aren't really because not because I'm it's something against like my own religion or anything like that, but it helps me explore the other aspects of not just my religion in general, but the rest of like other parts of being spiritual. Like um I started kind of like leaning more towards things that help my actual like spirit, my soul,
Mhm.
not just like, praying and going to church and things like that, typical stuff, but like more looking inward and taking care of myself and looking at things that I can kind of expand from. Because like I said, my church was rather accepting, um and it was very interesting growing up where I did, and in the household I am, with the Catholic Church being a main thing in my life, and still having acceptance and still having positive experiences. I know that's not for everyone. I know there are so many people struggling with their own religion or how they grew up
Hmm.
and being just treated like garbage because of that. And I feel very privileged that I had a good experience.
Right,
And I
right.
know not everyone did. And that's why it's like I don't take that for granted. And I look at other aspects, other religions, and other forms of spirituality as keeping
Hmm.
myself open minded, because it's like there's other people who found themselves in other things.
Right.
Like some people found themselves through Wicca, some people found themselves um, through the Muslim faith and through Buddhism. I know
Hmm.
quite a few Buddhists, and I know quite a few people who, just said screw to all organized religion. I'm gonna feel spiritual for myself in my own way,
Right.
and people who don't even have feel who are atheists and people who are agnostic. It's everyone's freedom to believe what they want to believe. And
Hmm.
for me to force that onto some other people is definitely not fair, but I can take in my time to listen to them and to take in their accounts.
Right.
So drag may not be the spiritual part for me, but it gives me the opportunity to explore and talk to other people about their experiences with their own spirituality, their religion, and having
Right.
conversations that I never thought I would have in my life, like having conversation with you about this.
Hmm.
I never thought
Yeah.
I'd sit down and talk about it.
Right. Well, and it sounds like to me, it sounds like, or my question is, it seems like you have been doing a lot of that personal work, and the stuff that you said is kind of tied to your new spirituality or your spirituality outside of the religion that you were brought up in.
Mhm.
And simultaneously, you're also building this drag persona and having success in that and really like spending a lot of energy in that. How do they not feed into each other?
It's mostly like, and not necessarily my spirituality doesn't feed into it. It's my religion doesn't feed
Got
into
you.
this. Yeah, because I'm still uncomfortable watching movies about demon possession because
Mm,
Catholicism and everything.
right.
But I don't mind doing. I can go outside of my religion and be more comfortable by exploring those darker sides of that religion and other people's religions, and seeing and kind of like being able to put on some horns, and doing darker pieces or more ones that break out of my religion and help me kind of dig deeper into my spirituality,
So,
but not necessarily with my religion
hmm,
fully.
so you still have the religion, and then you also have the spirituality. And it
Mhm.
sounds like the spirituality and the drag don't necessarily interfere with one another. Does your religion potentially, or I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
No,
Oh, you
and
froze me for a second.
I'm not labeling it weird. I'm just trying to understand.
Oh no, no, it's okay. Um, so like, cause I don't put my religion inside. The only time I've ever done it was actually recent. I I I, I forgot about this. I did do a recent performance to the song "Sanctify" by Years and Years, and that song is mostly about a person being there for someone who's not out of the closet and being like their secret lover, that kind of thing. But a lot of the imagery I was getting while listening to the song, when I first listened to the song, it was a lot of um, somebody coming out from their religious background and pulling it and kind of becoming something deeper.
Mhm.
And my performance was like that. I had worn a rosary, I had pulled it up and flung it across the room. I became something more sultry than I normally
Mhm.
would, because this is more of not necessarily a personal piece, but something I can explore with my drag.
Right.
And I feel like I didn't I did I was like throwing the rosary was a little hard for me.
Mhm.
Um, but I did it was fun. It's interesting to explore my religion and my spirituality with my drag, but it's not something that I focus completely on,
Mm-hmm.
because I have that opportunity. Like I said, I had a good experience in my religion, so I don't have to dig so deep and
And
break a
it's still
lot of,
and it's
yeah.
still your religion though.
It's still my religion. I am still Catholic. I still pray the rosary at funerals. I still uh I still listen to my mom when she gives me when she reads out of her book, her psalms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, sometimes when I struggle with a lot of myself, I pull out my rosary that I always have with me, even in my backpack when I go to work. I pull out my rosary and I just kind of mess with it. Not like mess with it, like I hold on to it, I
Right.
use it, I look at it, and I kind of think back. And it's not it's not a bad thing for me. It's not something bad to look upon.
Mm-hmm.
And um that's why it's like I feel like it doesn't interfere, but it doesn't play a huge part into me exploring and things like that. It's just a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily an inspiration for Justyn, but it is something that helps me define myself and maybe add a little something extra to my performances once in a while. So it's not it doesn't have too much I don't have too much of a problem
Right.
when it comes to my religion. My spirituality, it plays an effect with my drag and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
not my actual religion that I grew up and raised on.
Understood. Well, we are pretty much out of time. We have about 3 more minutes, so I would like to give you an opportunity to speak on something that you would like to speak on that maybe we haven't, or to highlight, and or just invite people to connect with you somehow.
All right. Well, the only thing I can think of, and just it's not necessarily like how I want to reflect on something, but I want people to understand that a religion is not something that completely defines you. It is what you believe, and if it's something you were raised on, that's great. But if you want to explore different religions, you want to explore different faiths, your spirituality on your own, do it. Because I mean, that's the only way you're ever going to learn about other people's experiences, especially with everything that's happening out in the world right now, especially with Iran. I would encourage anyone to learn about that religion, to learn about the things that these people are going through, because it opens our hearts, it opens our minds. Because we were, uh, with being Catholic and everything, we were taught, like I said earlier, to do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. You don't do that as harm. You do that as a respect.
Right.
You want people to understand you. You want to learn about people. Also learn to respect what they go through, what they deal with, because that's the only way we're ever going to really find harmony with each other, is to work together and understand and learn from each other.
Yes, yes. And do you want to let folks know how they can reach out to you if you'd like
Of
that?
course,
Yes.
of course. The best way you guys can find me is on Instagram. It's under Justyn Caze, JustynCaze, because if you type in with an I and an S, you're not going to find me. I can also be found on Facebook. My name is AJ Cheney. That is my actual name. That is the name that I have on Facebook, and that will be my legal name very soon. But that's where you can find me on Facebook. I do have a Justyn Caze page, but it's not very active. But if you guys want to find me, best places to find me is Instagram. I do have a TikTok as well. But those are the best places to find me: Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Justyn, for joining me today or this afternoon. And for folks who are listening or watching, you can find those links in the description. And thank you so much for joining us live today, those who did on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. And if you're listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts at Dragon Spirituality, we're grateful you joined us and you were here with us. So reach out to us. Let us know if you have any questions, suggestions. Maybe you want to be a guest, just, reach out to us, and check out dragonspirituality.com, and participate in the conference next weekend, or summit, I guess, next weekend in whatever way you can. Take care and have a good evening, everyone.
Have a good time.
All right. And I have this little thing I like to go out with. All right, here we go.